Hey guys, Brandon Kouwelis here, Director of the Salt Lake Community College Concurrent Enrollment Program. And today, in this episode, we are going to be doing a deep dive into the nitty-gritty detail of how advising works here at Salt Lake Community College for concurrent enrollment students. Now, in a previous video, I introduced you to some of the folks that are involved in that advising process. So we went around, we talked to the advisors / recruiters. Remember, they have those sort of a dual role because this is this joint venture between our office and the admissions office. And they talked a little bit about high level, some of the things that they do. But today, we're going to go through some things that we've been working on recently to try to improve our advising pipeline from the point that a student is interested in taking their concurrent classes a little more seriously and working towards some sort of a goal or objective to obtain a degree, to the point that they either finish with that degree or certificate or that they transition over to college. Now, advising is sort of a real hot topic here in the state because a few years ago, the legislature, the state legislature, created some new legislation that says, and in fact, I'll read it here, that says that the state board and the Utah Board of Education, Higher Education shall coordinate to provide advising to an eligible student, including information on general education requirements at institutions of higher education and how to choose concurrent enrollment courses to avoid duplication or excess credit hours. So that's something that's sort of been on the back of our mind for a long time, even prior to this legislation. But it's something that's really weighed on us of how do we make sure that the students taking concurrent enrollment classes are doing so with a purpose so that they don't end up accumulating a whole bunch of useless credit that's going to hurt them down the road instead of help them to achieve their academic goals. So like I said, today I'm going to walk you through the process that exists and that we're sort of working on refining, because what I'm going to share with you today is sort of a work in process. There are parts that are solid, there are other parts that we're working on tweaking to make this even better. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive over into our process map, and I'm going to walk you through step by step how this is starting to flesh out. So I wanted to begin just by giving you sort of a high-level view of what this process map looks like overall. But as we go through, we're going to zoom in here and take a look at each step, and I'm going to explain to you sort of how this pipeline or funnel or whatever you want to call it works. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now and zoom in and walk through this step by step. Now, the first lane that we're looking at is the student lane. So these are steps that the student follows. So we're going to begin, this whole process really begins when the student is interested in pursuing more than 2 concurrent enrollment classes. Because really, if they're only going to take 1 class and that's it, then maybe advising or academic planning is not going to be the best for them at that point until they start to decide they're going to take multiple concurrent enrollment classes. So the question then is, has the student completed 2 or more classes? If they have not, then the student is redirected to an information resource to help them get started. So they get some basic information about participating in concurrent enrollment, how to be successful in your first class or 2. And then once the student has successfully completed those classes, we come back and say, have they completed it? Well, yes, they have. Okay, then at this point, once they've completed those 2 or more classes, then the student's going to receive information on how to begin the SLCC advising process. Now, the question arose as we were working on this together is, how then do they receive that information? That information can come out down here from the advisor, the SLCC concurrent enrollment advisor, who would email the students or might deliver information at an information session. Now, we have a report in our Canusia system that allows us to spit out a list of students that have taken more than 2 classes, so that makes it really easy for us to generate a list of students that we need to target to give them information about advising and being strategic about their classes. Okay, let's come back up here and go to the next step, where once they've received information, then they're going to visit the concurrent enrollment website and watch an advising overview video that gives them a sense of, what is academic planning? What is academic advising? And is it the right thing for you given where you're at? Once they watch that video, then the question arises, is the student still interested in working with an advisor? If the answer is no, then at that point the process ends, because we can't really force students to participate in advising. Hopefully the video inspires them in the fact that they've taken a couple of classes, but if not, they can move on and they can do whatever they want. If the student is interested, Then they're going to be directed to an Academic Planning Foundations 101 video. Right now, this video and this resource don't exist. This is something that we identified as we were mapping this out, where some holes existed that we needed to fill in. So one thing that we'll be working on is developing a foundations video, because one of the things that the advisors had mentioned as we were talking together about how to make this process, this pipeline flow better, was they said that they spent a lot of time in their advising appointments, these hour-long advising appointments, going over foundational information, and they'd repeat that over and over and over again with each new student. So we said, well, why don't we find a way to automate that so that the student, when they come to you, is fully prepared. So instead of taking an hour with them, you can take 15 minutes with them and send them on their way with a high value add sort of thing. So they watch the planning video, and then they're going to complete an academic and career goal worksheet where we ask them some simple questions about, things like, what are you interested in? What sort of hobbies do you have? What do you envision yourself doing for work or for a career? Just to sort of get a sense of where they're headed. Once they've completed that, then we ask the question, does the student know their major? If they do, if a student comes to us and says, I want to be an engineer, and they are set on that, then we're going to skip the next several steps and move them right towards scheduling with their academic advisor. So they'll set up their very first appointment, and they will email the advisor and send them the worksheet and any other information that we need from them to get them started. And typically this first appointment that they have is going to say, well, actually, you know what? I'm not going to skip ahead right now. Let's wait until we get to that point. All right, so we'll go back here. Does the student know their major? No. If they do not know their major, then they're going to watch a MyCE academic plan creation video. This video is going to walk them through how they use our Canusia system, which we call MyCE, to log in, set up their account, and create their first draft academic plan in MyCE. So we'll walk through that step by step, and the student will perform that task as they're watching the video. Also, once they've completed the video, we will encourage them to take the SLCC placement test. That's the test that we use. We don't use AccuPlacer. We use our own sort of in-house system. And they'll submit the test scores if possible and reasonable. So they can also submit ACT scores if they've taken it. If they haven't, then they won't be able to do it. So let me step back here to MyCE, and let's jump over, and instead of walking through these process steps, I'm going to actually show you how a student creates an academic plan in MyCE. So here I am in a student account. So what they're going to do is they're going to come into MyCE and click on the My Degree Plans section of MyCE in our Canusia system. Once that loads, they'll see their name, they'll see the graduation date. This is information that was pulled off of the admission application when they filled that out. They'll then select the counselor that is listed at their high school. We have to go through every year and update this so that we have the most up-to-date list of counselors at their particular high school. And then they'll select an area of study. So the areas of study are sort of a way to channel students into a program of study or a major. So first they'll select a broad category of interest, and then they'll take classes within that will hopefully funnel them towards a specific major. The other thing that happens here in MyCE is when they select an area of study, it highlights classes that fit within that area of study so that when they're taking classes, they can be strategic about their classes they're taking. They'll select the degree type that they want to pursue. Generally, we encourage students to select the General Education Certificate of Completion, which is a one-year certificate that packages their general education and transfers seamlessly to any institution in the state of Utah, any higher ed institution in the state of Utah, and awards, basically they've completed their general education once they've received this certificate, and they're good to move on to their program of study. So they'll select one of these. They can select exploring in my area. If they say, well, I don't really know, I just want to maybe take a few classes in the area I'm interested, they can absolutely do that. So once they do that, and later as they continue selecting classes and taking classes, they can monitor their progress towards completing either the one-year certificate or the general ed associates in general education, they can monitor the progress here and they can see how many credits they've created in both electives and generals. Once they've done that, they'll click Next Step. And that will take them to the actual academic plan creation window. So here, what they're going to do is go through and select classes that they need, and we're going to assume that the student is working towards their general education certificate of completion. They need to complete all their required general education. So they're going to go through each of these categories, which are all required. So you see it has the category Composition 1. They have to have 3 credits in English, 3 credits in quantitative literacy, and so on down to electives. Electives are not required unless they are working towards their associate degree. So they can go through and expand out English here. So I have to do 3 credits, and I can do that either through AP, English language or English literature, or I can take English 1010. If they decide they want to do English 1010 or AP, they'll click Select. And then they'll select the class that they want to add to their plan. So they can select AP English Literature or whatever they want to select. They can then choose the location where they want to take that. Am I going to take it at Salt Lake Community College? Am I going to take it in my high school through the sort of traditional concurrent program? And am I going to do it through early enrollment where I come onto the college campus and I pay full tuition? Or am I going to do some sort of other form of college credit like AP? They select that. They select the semester or year when they want to take that class. So the semester here, year here. And then they'll click Add to Plan. Now this class is highlighted gray here because it's already been added to the plan. So I'm going to close this. And somewhere over here, there we see English 1010 has already been added. So that's why it's grayed out up here. Courses that are green, as it says up here, are recommended based on their area of interest. Now they've selected business as their major, and we're looking at English classes because English is pretty much required, across the board. But if we were to scroll down here to electives and expand this out, you'll notice classes like accounting are selected, AP Calculus, because business, at least here, requires the algebra/calculus route. Computer science is business related, but you'll notice things like music theory, automotive, architecture. Those classes are not required and they're not highlighted green. So you can see how selecting their area of study has highlighted class recommendations based on their area of interest so that they can take classes with a purpose. So the student will continue through each of these areas, adding classes to their plan over here to whichever semester they think. Now, at this point, this isn't going to be perfect. This is what they're doing preliminarily before they meet with the advisor. Once the advisor sits down with them, they'll look at this plan and they may shuffle some things around based on what they have to do for high school and what is a reasonable load at college. So in order to move classes, they'll simply click this Move button, and then they'll change the semester and year where they want to move that to or remove it from the plan. So they'll go through that and build out their plan. And once they've done that, they'll click Next Steps. Right here, they'll go ahead and review their final plan. So they'll see what they've selected for each semester. If they've already taken some classes, maybe they've taken 4 or 5 classes and they're just meeting with an advisor, any completed classes will show up here and they'll show up complete so they can see where they've progressed to at this point. If everything looks great, they can click to print the plan and then they can take that into their advisor, or they can simply click Submit for review, and then the plan or a notification will be sent to 2 people. It'll be sent to the advisor assigned to that student. So here's the SLCC Concurrent Enrollment Advisor, and there's the email address. And it shows when it was last updated, but it'll also be sent to the counselor, the high school counselor. They'll get a notice that says, hey, students completed an academic plan, and we'll invite the counselor to go in and look at it to make sure there are no conflicts with the high school schedule. If there are conflicts, then the counselor would reach out to the concurrent enrollment advisor, and they would have an email discussion about some of the things they need to be aware of when advising this student. And that is the academic planning piece of within MyCE, again, our Canusia system. Okay, now let's go ahead and jump back here to the map, and you get a sense. So they've created their plan. Down here, the advisor was notified, the counselor was notified. The advisor then sends an email to the students once they've received that plan that says, hey, I've got everything I need from you. You can go ahead now and schedule a meeting with me, and we'll go over this one-on-one and work out all the kinks so that you've got a really solid academic plan. The counselor, like I said, would review it for any conflicts. If there are no conflicts, everything's great. The counselor step ins, and like I said, if there are conflicts, then the counselor would work with the SLCC Concurrent Enrollment Advisor, and they would work out any kinks that need to be worked out. Okay, so once that's done, we go back up here to the student. Student schedules the appointment, comes down here, and the student and the SLCC Concurrent Enrollment Advisor go through the student's career goals, and they review the academic plan. Also at this point, the advisor may clarify student academic goals and redirect the student if necessary. So if a student says, I'm going to be an engineer, and then they meet with the advisor, and the advisor says, do you realize that engineering requires advanced mathematics? And the student says, I hate math with a passion, and it makes me want to kill myself. Then the advisor might say, well, here's some things you need to know. Let's maybe relook at some other majors or other things that you may be interested in. Or you know what, why don't we just hold off on the engineering goal? Let's step back and just work on your generals. And as you do that, you may discover something else you're super passionate about and want to major in. So they may direct them if necessary. As we move along, they then review and update the MyCE academic plan together. They review the student advising booklet that has some critical information they're going to send the student off with. Now, this is something that hasn't been created yet, but a place where we identified there was a weakness in our advising pipeline that needed to be created. So this is something that we'll be working on creating down the road. They'll insert the printed academic plan then with this booklet and schedule a follow-up appointment with the student at that time. And later on, the advisor will send an appointment reminder. The system that they use to schedule the appointment will also send a reminder. And the student then goes ahead and follows up with their plan. And when they get to the point where they have decided to meet again, the student confirms the appointment, come back down here, and the student and the advisor review the progress and the corrections and updates that need to be made and continue on. Now, they ask a question at this point. First of all, is the student going to graduate with an associate or a certificate? If the answer is yes, then the advisor is going to provide graduation information to the student during about their senior year. So they'll provide graduation information. The student will then follow instructions and apply for graduation. If they're not going to graduate with their associate or certificate, then the question is, does the student wish to continue at Salt Lake Community College? If the answer is yes, then the advisor gives them some information about admission updates, the concurrent enrollment transition tuition waiver, and any other information relevant to transitioning. Let's come back down here. And if the student does not wish to continue, then the credit transfer instructions are provided to the student. So at that point, then the student continues working towards their goals unless this is the final term of their senior year. And if that's the case, then the question is the student going to attend SLCC or are they going somewhere else? If the student is going somewhere else, then we give them some information about how to transfer their credit. If they're going to SLCC, the student then applies for the concurrent enrollment transition waiver, and the student completes the admission update form, and they matriculate to Salt Lake Community College. And that is our student advising process, or at least the ideal student advising process that we're currently working towards building here at Salt Lake Community College, all the way from the point of a student is interested in taking concurrent enrollment to the next step to the point that they graduate or matriculate to Salt Lake Community College or somewhere else. All right, so hopefully that gives you some ideas now of some things that you can try within your own program to offer advising services, or maybe improve the services that you already offer in delivering value to those students out there who are participating in your program. Now, as always, Remember, if you have any comments, questions, thoughts, ideas, post those in the comments below. Share with the community. And until the next episode, remember that nothing is impossible if you're resourceful, if you think outside those walls that have been built around you over the years, and last of all, if you then have the courage to act.